always do the same face.
Well, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you've got one good face, just stick to that.
I've got that one good face. I'm cultivated from the new romantic era. I've stuck with it. Fade to grey, that's the face. That's the one I've always had.
I don't think I even need to introduce this wonderful woman that I'm sitting next to right now, but I will for those of you that live under a rock. This is Princess Julia. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm really excited to be on your podcast. Is that a podcast or?
Do you know what? I never know what to call it because I don't do audio only.
Podcasts are old-fashioned, aren't they?
Listen,
Don't do that anymore.
I think we should call it a show.
Show.
We don't get a show anymore. We're bringing back a show. I feel like we've got a lot of ground to cover because you do so much. You don't make it easy for people interviewing you because she does everything.
Well.
And you're good at it all as well. So we need to start from the start.
Thanks.
You are. Do you struggle to take compliments?
Oh yeah, I'm from a damaged, maybe, start in life. So I do suffer with a bit of low self-esteem. It's all a facade.
But it's good that you're honest about it because a lot of people are not.
Yeah, I realised quite early on I could sort of reinvent myself. So when I left school in 1976, I was really, very, very shy, and there were all these like fantastic things going on around me, and I was meeting lots of new people, but I was so shy. And then sort of like a few years later, I realised the power of makeup, and I could hide behind my makeup, behind a look. And that's really the sort of beginnings of Princess Julia. That sort of idea of creating a sort of like mood around yourself, a character almost that you can sort of step into. It's quite fantastic. But I am still me. I'm not like pretending to be someone else. I'm still me. And I've gained confidence over the years, obviously.
No.
But you know, there's always the inner child, isn't there?
Of course. So you say you left school, you discover the big power of makeup, and you start to experiment with your image and build this character that helps you feel more confident that you could go out into the world as yourself. What was your kind of early exposures to fashion?
My childhood exposures to fashion were my grandmother, who was a great fan of a flamboyant frock. She was actually an opera singer of a kind. She had a marvellous wardrobe, and I remember rifling through her wardrobe and pulling out all sorts of stuff, you know, those beautiful sort of 50s frocks, hand painted, and you know, the Dior look and things like that. And I guess that had an impact. And her in general, she was always sort of had a lipstick on, quite a flamboyant person. She gave up her opera life to become a wife because I think that was the direction that her family wanted her to go. Right, that there was a sort of a cut-off period. I think if you were in showbiz in that time as a woman, you know, you had to have some sort of decorum, I feel, maybe. And then from that, I basically was sat in front of a TV, and my favourite sort of films were like sort of film noir, black and white films, musicals, those old Busby Berkeley, Hollywood films. You know, I am a fan of musical theatre. I'm not ashamed to say. Yeah, that sort of theatrical sort of idea. And then with my own sort of curiosity driving me forth, I did my own research really and scoured libraries and just became obsessed with like that Hollywood period, and then fashion in general. When I was like 13, I was sort of like watching all the pop stars and things, you know, it was the glam rock period then. Obviously Bowie was a huge influence. I was looking in magazines because that was really our main form of garnering any sort of idea of what was going on in the wider world. Finding like shops and places that I could buy these fashions or go and look at them. So one of those places was actually Bieber, and I used to bunk off school to go and sit in the window with Bieber in the school uniform.
I'm sure
And
you
Marvel,
at it.
that was sort of like very sort of early 70s. So all those sort of things had a huge impact on me, really. And I was bunking off school to go to Topshop and getting looks, even at like age 14, 15. I didn't really have many friends, but fashion was my friend.
That should be on some t-shirts.
Yeah, fashion was my friend. I don't know why, I was so into sort of creating a look, and that sort of started at like age 8, when I sort of begged my mother for my 8th birthday to have my ears pierced. I wanted a smock top, and I wanted the tights that had a pattern up the side, and I knew exactly what I wanted, and I also wanted corduroy, elephant cord.
I love that you still remember the details as well. Specific, like that outfit was so clear in your mind.
Yeah, something clicked in me at quite an early age of like how to sort of put a look together. Hot pants, that was one that I really wanted, and I knew the shop where to get them from, Ladybird in Wood Green High Street. Dragged my mother there, poor thing. And she was a much more, she wasn't like the Gran. She was much more, how can I put it? She had a look. It was kind of a very natural look. She wasn't interested in any sort of like beautification in any way, shape or form. She liked function. Just a look, but I think people sometimes forget that like putting a look together, it doesn't have to be outrageous or flamboyant. You can do a really good look that's like functional, and you can steer your way through the duties that you may have to do in life, or be presentable for certain sort of jobs, I mean, I'm into uniforms. Now, I am from the school of share, but that doesn't mean to say that I pay homage and love the more feral looking type person, I should say, and I really admire people that go out makeup free and like can just present themselves. I wouldn't say I'm still hiding behind makeup, but it's definitely a force. It's definitely part of my persona, and I'm a person that doesn't really like going out without makeup, and I also do like to take advantage of a procedure. I make no bones about that whatsoever. I'm all in.
So I'm laughing, the stories in the background saying, me too.
I started having Botox when it was invented. When I turned 40, and I didn't really need it, I was like, the secret of eternal youth. Right, I'm going down there. At the moment, I have a little bit of Profilo, which is like a collagen injection that I find is quite good. Obviously, I have a bit of Botox, and maybe have that once or twice a year, not very much. Tweakments are good, right? The little things, like every now and again, when you feel like it. I felt, for me, I am accepting the age process, right? It is quite tough because we live in a society where youth is everything, still, really. I am enjoying age diversity along with body diversity. I think it's important that all ages are represented. When I got to about 60, I realised you could have this like, you didn't have to have a full facelift. I did a bit of research, and you could have like it's got like a mini deep plane little lift, and I just felt like it was here and it's going a bit giblety. That's probably about 3 years ago now. I mean, it's so subtle. Some of my friends looked really panic-stricken, like, don't do it, and I was like, oh, it'd be fine. They don't, it's just a lower thing. There's no you can't see any. The scars are all in the hairline. You can't see them anymore. They're gone now.
I have been obsessed. This has been like my thing that I'm fixated on with Mark Jacobs' facelift.
Oh yeah,
Because
he has one the same about the same
good.
time as
But you
me.
might have knocked him off my top spot. Now I think I'm obsessed with yours.
Yeah, he had a look the same sort of thing that I had.
His looks amazing.
Yeah,
he looks so natural, so like fresh.
Yeah.
His skin looks amazing. But no, I think now my new favourite facelift on earth is Princess Julia.
It's a little, you know. I mean, I will have a full one at some point, but I don't really know when. But maybe when I'm 70 or so, you know, I think, oh, maybe I'll have one then. But I haven't had anything else. I haven't had like blepharoplasty or anything like that at all. So I know that I've been quite lucky genetically. I just feel better in myself.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to have a nice life and have a nice calm life and sort of enjoy myself and meet people and see what everyone's doing and put a look on.
Well, I think you have to write to all those
Sort of
things.
present myself, you know. Yeah, I mean, Cher's, I love her. I think she looks amazing. And then, you know, but I also like Patti Smith. I think Patti Smith looks amazing because Patti has an equal amount of confidence.
It's like what you were saying about age diversity. I tend to, when I'm looking at people that if I think through my Rolodex in my head of style icons, people that I look at for fashion inspiration, a lot of them are older women.
I do feel like, you know, we live in a society where, you know, youth is like the ideal, you know, that dewy, gorgy, sort of youthful.
Well, I guess without that, they can't sell as much stuff.
You
have to sell something people can't ever achieve, isn't it? So
the
it's
beauty
like,
myth, we've all been brainwashed into it. But also, I do really enjoy the idea that a procedure is sort of like an extension of a makeup look. And I somehow, in my way, do enjoy people that experiment with their faces. I mean, you know, Pete Burns as a complete role model for me, and you know, his look, when you think back, might have seemed quite extreme, but in today's climate, he'd just fit in, wouldn't he?
So true.
You know,
Just ahead of his time.
He was really a visionary, and we spent many a time chatting about this and trying to decipher these codes of beauty and the different standards. It's the pressures of like existing in the society that we live in and what is held high as the ideal standard. I think individually you just have to find a way of navigating through that and finding your own sort of like happy place. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm loving this.
But humans are the only sort of species that like have this sort of psychology and desire to dress and dress up or dress down or create different sort of versions of themselves.
It seems like as soon as you started, this fashion thing started to click for you, so you said about 8 years old is the first you can remember. What I noticed from your answer is like you're a very curious person. It seems like you want to know more about everything that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And when I look at the trajectory of your life and career, it seems like you haven't lost that passion and interest in stuff. Actually, if you know, like yourself, you've got a title as like an icon of a very specific subculture, Blitz kids, new romantics.
Oh yeah.
It's easy to sort of put that in a time capsule and just sort of like, oh, everything's been done, I'm not interested anymore, that was the day.
Yeah.
What keeps you interested and passionate?
It's a good question because it's hard to sort of pinpoint really. I think it's just something sort of innate deep within me, something in my brain, the wheels start whirring, and I'm fascinated at the way you can take different elements and put them together and make something sort of new, make a new statement. It's a thing to ponder, isn't it? I think it's like a driving force that like it is invigorating. You know, I feel energised by it, so I think that's why my curiosity and my excitement about sort of creating different looks and ideas and concepts around fashion, but those threads sort of like reach out to a myriad of disciplines. You know, it doesn't sort of stop at fashion. It goes into philosophy, it goes into art practices, it goes into like your inner workings, it goes into trauma, it goes into all the elements that make you be human. And I think that is a sort of constant question and fascination as to what it is to be human and what it is to sort of explore different elements in your life that make life really exciting.
No, I've never had anyone put it in that way before, because you never come across as jaded ever. And I think especially in fashion, especially in nightlife, like I think the industries you've worked in, you do meet a lot of people that are they want to be unfazed by everything. I've seen it all, but you always seem to have this like excitement and lust for life. So I just wanted to ask about that.
I don't see anything wrong with being jaded, quite frankly, because I think being jaded is quite camp. I find it quite amusing. I could sit there and say, oh yeah, I have seen that before, but I've never really seen things before when they're presented in a new time, a new place, and with new concepts coming in, you know. So yeah, there may be elements, say when I see a show, of things that I recognise, and I quite like it that my mind is like a reference book, and I do enjoy seeing those references creep in. And nothing excites me more to know that I've been on the mood board of a designer, and I know that I quite often am.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, you know.
I saw a look actually that reminded me of you in the Vaquera show. Have you looked at that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a couple of looks and I was like, this look like Julia. So I'm sure you was on many a mood board. What is on your fashion wish list currently? Anything you've got your eye on?
I mean, I am a doom scroller.
Mm-hmm.
I admit to it. I mean, I love a trend report, I must say.
So what you got your eye on?
Just today, actually, that YSL look coming through.
The new show.
That looks good. Yeah, it looked quite good. And then, what was that other designer that you just said?
Yeah.
What, say
Is
it?
it Vaquera?
Vaquera?
I might be saying it wrong, but that's how I say it.
Was that like a couple of days ago?
Yes.
So I'm going to show studio after this to review that show. But so I've been looking at it, but it looks really good. I loved that actually. And then, okay, so I thought London Fashion Week was really good this year, actually. I thought there were some fantastic looks in there. You know, I am a devotee of fashionista, and I thought the designers coming through there were, what can I say, beyond. Let's say that. But I think that's getting a bit common now, because I've noticed it on adverts. Just when you think you're like owning your own words and like, you know, and then suddenly that becomes thrown out to the wider demographic.
You know what? That must be a constant frustration in your life. Just being a
well,
source of inspiration for everyone.
They just steal everything from our community, don't they? Actually, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind getting some few pieces from Ashley Williams, who did a delightful little show. I kind of go with the idea of what I like and what I would wear, what I could see myself in. Oh, Natasha Zinko. I thought that was an interesting show, yeah. And,
I was meant to go to that one and I missed it, so I missed out.
Yeah, there was a concept going on around plastic surgery as well, which isn't a new concept to take on board, but she presented it in it's very streamed down for her actually. I thought it was quite sort of stripped back silhouette. I always find her stuff quite interesting. I think it's exciting because there's just different factors coming in, and it's the same with music. That's why I'm always continually excited about DJing new music as well. You know, I'm a great fan of electronica and disco, but my heart is like really in that electronic realm, and it really fascinates me that basically the same format of music since the mid-80s really, or even earlier, really maybe the late 70s, is the same sort of fall to the floor format and sounds are still sort of very prevalent today. It doesn't sound dated. The music that you hear now that you go to a club and dance to, quite often it's the same sort of formula, it's the same sort of sounds coming in, and it's like over 40 years old.
A lot of the time even the same songs.
Yeah, same songs creeping in as well, but I love that. I'm a fan of the mashup.
Absolutely, everything's a remix.
I mean, that's really exciting. I can't believe I still do it, to be honest.
Do you think fashion and music's always gone together for you?
Oh yeah.
You can't separate the two, that's always kind of like hand in hand.
Yeah, I do think that, yeah. I've never really questioned it. I thought it was like that for everybody.
I don't know, you know. I'm trying to think now myself. I don't think for me it is anymore, which is funny. I've never considered that until I've just asked it to you. I think there was definitely certain looks that I've done that definitely were heavily influenced by music, but I think now everything's a bit all over the place, sonically and visually. Okay. But that's fine.
I mean, I think if you want to throw a look in a club or as a DJ, DJing, it's acceptable. Yeah. But yeah, obviously I know people that don't, DJs that don't, you know, they turn up in their jeans and t-shirt, you know, but they're great DJs, you know.
Because I know you've spoken about like some of your earlier start inspirations was like when you first saw like the women of punk.
Oh yeah.
How was that? Because I think most people in their whatever generation they're in have had that moment where they've discovered punk.
Yeah.
But discovering it when everybody else discovered it and it actually was new. So how was it to see that for the very first time?
I mean, it was a very
see it happen.
Yeah, it was a very small scene. Yeah. I mean, I would say the core members of the scene were like 100 people maybe. I mean, it was tiny, but it did quickly sort of radiate out. I saw that Sex Pistols thing on TV. I didn't know them then at all. But I saw it on TV and I was like, oh wow, look at the whole, you know, these people were around. And then I got my hairdressing job, and there was a girl there that was going out with Paul Cook, who's the drummer of the Sex Pistols. So I remember they all came in the salon one day. It was in Knightsbridge. They sort of rampaged through the salon one day, and it was so sort of exciting and outrageous. And I'm still friends with Paul Cook to this day. I mean, that's kind of wonderful, isn't it? Bit by bit, I became more aware of the scene going on, and through these people that I was hairdressing with, they knew what was going on. And there was another hairdressers up the road called Smile, and they were much more sort of trendy and knew what was going on as well. So there was sort of a few little clubs like the Roxy and like the Vortex. And then there were a few little things like that going on. It was a very sort of small scene. And I was so shy in those days. I mean, I was only like 16, 17. And I was so shy that I was around on the peripheries. And I still know those people to this day. And that they remember me. But there isn't a lot of photographic evidence, I'm afraid. There may be one or two things, but I just was so timid, really. It wasn't really until the sort of new romantic period that I really sort of came into my own, till the new romantic period. As a hairdressing junior, I did used to save up my tips, and I remember going into seditionaries. Jordan was there and being petrified, and I remember going to gigs and things and seeing polystyrene. I mean, you know, she's so made. And then later on down the line, I actually became friends with Polly. These amazing women, Susie Sue, all the rest of it, you know, that they were all really, the Slits, you know, they were all really just going for it and encouraged, you know, and supported in the scene. I definitely took that away with me and somehow re-emerged in the new romantic era.
As you said, you were quite shy. Do you feel like once the new romantic era started to pick up, you felt your confidence was growing a little bit and you felt like you could jump in? Or do you think it was more like, because you already said earlier you had these leanings towards the sort of old Hollywood film noir, do you think it just struck more of a chord with you than punk did that made you just can't resist it.
Yeah, I think I somehow, you know, as I said, I discovered the joys of makeup, and I pulled all those elements together, and sort of like quite naturally just sort of like recreated myself to give myself more confidence. I felt more enabled to be more flamboyant with makeup, because punk was really like an anti-fashion type statement. It was about sort of making yourself ugly almost, or sort of like confrontational in the street. And as a new romantic, we actually thought we were like really beautifying ourselves. We were like going for like a sort of flawless kind of idea. And I think maybe those sort of two components sort of like actually paved the way for the Gothic look to sort of evolve.
Absolutely.
So there's something of both those countercultural moments that are revealed in the Gothic movement as sort of like camp, glam, flawless, but still confrontational look.
Yeah, it's like you were saying, you can take all these different elements and things you found and make something new. And from the inceptions of goth to like now, there's so many, all these subcategories.
Yeah, sort of later on in the 80s, sort of mid-80s, there was, you know, Lee Bowery arrived, and then there was a sort of like heightened sort of glam makeup as well, and I was involved in that as well. I was actually a coat check girl to boo for a bit as well, and that was a very interesting moment, because Lee was from Australia, and he had a definite idea of why he wanted to be in London. He seemingly gravitated to London, and via garnering his own knowledge from the magazines that were around, like ID and The Face and things. And quite often people have said to me, you know, the reason I came to London was so I could meet people like you and you know.
Because they would have seen you on your iconic 19 magazine cover and been like, who is this girl?
Oh, I've never been on the cover of ID.
No, 19 I said.
Oh, 19.
Yeah,
oh my
they
God.
must have seen that and been like,
maybe, yeah.
I'm getting on the plane. That moment in your life, as big as it is from the outside, like,
what do you mean?
You being on that big cover and having this whole moment in the music video, I was like,
no, I was just pottering around in the bleakness, in the
quickly
austerity of London in the late 70s. I mean, it was pretty dismal. It was pretty like awful, really. I think it's why it's always like referenced, and people go back to that sort of Blitz club, new romantic moment, is that it was really a carry on from the punk scene of this idea that you could like you could actually do your own thing, and it was a real bolster. There was something very supportive in the scene, and once again it was very small, and everyone that was coming there had sort of ideas of what they wanted to be in life. There were Dylan Jones was there, you know, doing editing, Robin Derrick, you know, that they're all, and then there were musicians, lot of different musicians from different scenes. It was very eclectic scene-wise, you know, but everyone had a sort of common denominator of culture and going forward, you know. People were quite visionary with their ideas, so that, you know, there were fashion designers, there were filmmakers, there were musicians, and everyone sort of got together. That was the catalyst for so many people to start exploring their process and disciplines around creating new music, new magazines, new ways of seeing things, new ways of doing things. So it really was a great platform for that, and I think because of that, why that new romantic scene really became something of a seminal moment. It's a melting pot.
Yeah.
For want of a better word.
And how did you kind of become the face of that?
I don't think I was the face of it
one
at
of
all,
them.
but
I think one of.
there was quite a lot of different, there was a lot of powerful women in that scene actually. There were people like Michelle Clapton, who went on to, in more recent times, do Game of Thrones, wardrobe, costume, who I'm still in touch with. There's still people around from that time. It's nice. Sade, the marvellous Sade, oh my God. So beyond, right?
Honestly.
I love Sade.
Her son used to always get on my bus.
Really?
Yeah, and I used to think, how can I approach this man so that I can somehow get that white outfit Sade wore?
Really?
Who do I have to marry?
I'll tell you what.
It's in the museum.
She was so stylish even then. She was really I don't know if she was really shy, because I sort of think she was, but she had this sort of aura of calmness. If I see her now, she's still really calm. I saw her at a party a few years ago, and we had a nice chat. And I know one of the members of her band. I don't know a few of the members of her band actually, because they all sort of formed around that WAG club time as well. So I mean, oh my God, so amazing.
I like her style because people think of her, the image of Sade in your head is that she's very glamorous, very elegant, which she is. When you actually break down her outfit, she was very androgynous.
She was a student at Central St Martin's around that time.
You've been at the shows recently.
Yeah.
Who are some of your favourite designers at the moment?
I do enjoy going to shows still. I was quite amused that it's 40 years of London Fashion Week, and I went to the first one.
Wow.
And no one's really picked up on that. But I remember hot-footing it to London Fashion Week, and actually I went to see Sinead O'Dyer installation up at the 180. So I had a look at Sarah Moa's collage, historical collage going on. It was quite good actually, it was good. And I was with someone, I was going, oh, what's that? Oh, that. So I could sort of pinpoint the various. So before London Fashion Week, there was people just did put shows in wherever they could. They would be sort of seasonal, but I remember Anthony Price did a show which I went to at the Camden Palace, which is now Coco. Jerry Hall was in it.
Wow.
I mean, in a nightclub, the sort of fashion show, and that was 83. I think there's a video of it actually somewhere, but that was 80. That was the year before. So people did do sort of installations or presentations of sorts around and about, but there's nothing structured. So it was the first time that something really dedicated to a catwalk show had ever happened, and I remember it was exciting. And I remember going to body map shows quite a lot. This was the thing. Stephen Jones was very focused and dedicated to millinery, and as soon as he left college, he set up his own salon in Soho, in Wardour Street, in a little rickety room, 2 floors up. It's all a bit red lighty as well around there. We used to have salon shows in his showroom. Wow. And I was one of the models vivants.
Of course.
We used to have these little salon shows, and people that were in town would attend, and it would be a cup of tea, and it was all very twee and whimsical. We'd come out, just a black shift and a hat, and be walking around, and I mean, it was hilarious.
I love it.
Yeah, it was really, and we had background music going on and everything, and I did continue doing that for quite a few seasons, and it was camp.
I need to find pictures of this.
It was really good actually. When I think I've got very fond memories of modelling at Stephen Jones's Fashion Week presentations. Actually, it was really his mission to put millinery on the fashion map, because really before Stephen, millinery and hat making was a sort of like, it was almost a dying sort of craft.
Well, another milliner you've been working with, I know, is Miss Mazar, because you were selling
Right,
pearls now. How's you've been doing your scarves, haven't you? Silk. And your paintings, because you also do art. Like, you've really got your hand in everything. How's that been?
I mentioned that I really felt that I was very unfocused in the early 80s, and I was doing lots of different things, you know, working in clubs. I did some knitwear, I used to do sample knitwear making, I did some for Body Map, and John Galliano.
Wow.
Who lived round the corner, and it was something my grandmother taught me, is how to knit and make up patterns. Somehow I learned how to do it, and it was something I could do, but it wasn't really a thing that I wanted to do all the time. You know, it's quite a stationary sort of job, really. I am quite social, but I enjoyed doing it. I mean, I could do it now, I guess, if you want a nice cardigan. But I've always had these sort of like ideas of doing other stuff to sort of like, well, sort of almost entertain myself, or you know, explore other ways to express. You know, my artistic flourishes, they sort of come through every now and again. And so regarding Nazir, he runs, curates, shall we say, a collective called Fantastic Twirls, and he does quite often ask me to contribute, and I never really know what to do, quite frankly. But it was suggested that I do some scarves with some paintings, which I was like, yeah, that could be a thing. So I did some paintings and got them printed onto scarves, and I just did a very small run, just 7. Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Do you think you'll do another one?
Yeah, I think I'll do another run. Yeah, I think I'll, because they all sold, so they were nice actually. I did them like Hermes size.
Of course.
Yeah, you know,
only the best.
Decent size. It's exciting. Yeah, I'm definitely going to sort of pursue that a little bit more, maybe. You know what puts me off a lot of things? It's the admin side of doing stuff. Just like really like admin. What's her name? Amanda, yeah. Who did those?
It's called 5 Amandas. You go do a little show and tell.
Oh, here we go.
The 5 Amandas. It was shot in New York. It was like superimposed.
It's funny actually, I've got a prop now. I feel like there's people like Amanda Lepore that are such icons of like the night world. But I wanted to ask, it's not really even your opinion, but just if you have any thoughts about like the differences of the scene, America to London.
Oh,
Two such powerful things going on with the club kids over there
and
here.
Yeah. So the first time I went to New York, because actually there's always been a sort of conversation between New York and London. There's always been a sort of parallel existence of both cities communicating together. And it's always been a thing, I think, if you're from London, that one of the first stops is New York City. I don't know if it's like that now. It must be.
I think people do still compare them and say it's that very similar energy.
But I think it was much more prevalent sort of in the 70s and the 80s. It always seemed to be like a thing. So the first time I went to New York was early 80s, and I stayed at the Chelsea Hotel. I did a photo shoot with Maripol. I mean, you know, it was all happening. Suzanne Barch was already living there at that time. She'd opened a shop there. And then there was also this other sort of layer where she was bringing London designers to New York. And then later on down the line, in the 90s, well, the late 80s really, the sort of whole club kid scene sort of came up. And I was going there more in the sort of like 80s, you know, go there for a few weeks. I remember going to like Wigstock. Wigstock was Lady Bunny and Larry T was involved in it. RuPaul was coming up then, you know, early days. That was quite sort of seminal. Also, like club-wise, here, Ministry of Sound opened, and that club was based on the Sound Factory in New York, Junior Vasquez's night there, which was a gay club, so it was kind of interesting, but they kind of based it on that.
What was your look like at the time? Can you remember? Like, or the look in general as well?
Well,
like,
I
what was
did
the
have
vibes?
a look, yeah. So I worked in a shop called World at the time, and it was really the sort of beginning of branding, and branding being a sort of cool thing. I remember it so well because you'd say what you were wearing. You know,
Right.
I'm wearing Prada today and with my Gucci bag, you know, and it became a thing.
Whereas
But
before it was
before
more
that,
DIY.
It was like we wear designer items, but you wouldn't necessarily show off about it so much. So it was really where like that sort of idea of buying into a brand became a credible thing. It filtered down to like some sort of trainer counterculture and, you know, the whole trainer sort of obsession. You know, you'd make a statement with your brand, and I remember even like kickers, like you couldn't just have one tag on the kickers, it was like 20 tags. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you know, so if you couldn't like afford to buy a whole look or something, you could have the key ring. You know, it's where that sort of semiotics sort of really came into play, and it was like creating a desire around the brand.
So what was your look at that time?
So the 90s, right, I actually was making quite a nice bit of money DJing. I had an agent and I used to fly around, just go to Italy like twice a month, you know, and I'd get paid properly. It seemed to be that era, people were getting paid. Like, I wasn't sort of on the upper echelon, but it was quite reasonable, you know, for those times. I could afford to buy a little bit of Gucci and Prada myself by then, and I did always buy stuff. Even, you know, I'd buy my friends' stuff like Body Map, or I'd buy some like Rachel Alburn stuff, or they'd give me stuff, or I'd borrow it, or much the same as now, you know, sort of luxury brands, because they were like reinventing themselves. I was managing to sort of like afford some pieces from various collections. I remember like I had a sort of fair amount of Gucci, Moschino, a little bit of that, you know, and so usually they had sort of like cruise lines as well, so I could afford those sort of brands too. So I'd sort of mix it up really, like I do now really, the same, you know, I'd sort of like find a friend, or they'd say, oh, do you like this or whatever, you know, there was still that idea, people were like, you know, could get concessions in, say, like Hyper or Kensington Market even, or, you know, Body Map was selling down in Camden Lock. They sold their pieces down there, you know, so there's always been that sort of like other level of fashion acquiring going on. I think that's, well, UK is quite sort of exciting for that. And then really, Fantastic 12s carries on from that idea, you know, that you can find things in a collective and unique way. And I do think, you know, I love Dover Street Market, it's one of my faves. And I think Dover Street has sort of based itself on that idea, but with like high-end, more known brands mixed up with like, you know, emerging designers and sportswear and all those sort of like t-shirts and what have you going on in that sort of fabulous store, along with Stephen Jones in there. You know, I love that idea.
Yeah.
And then sort of like with arts installations and things, you know, so because I always tell students, you know, you really should try and go to see what they're doing up at Dover Street, because even if you don't buy anything, you know, they do installation work, there's events there and things that that are sort of engaging and take fashion and art into sort of like another sort of domain. It's interesting to see, you know, because they display sort of runway pieces that don't go into production, you know, and they'll be there in the store. I recently DJ'd Rick Owens' installation for the is it a Hollywood sort of cloaky looking installation that was quite fantastic, you know.
Very cool.
It looked good, it looked impressive, you know.
Yeah, no, I love that collection.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it looked good, you know. Definitely elevated the idea and concept of fashion, because there are crossovers in the art world and the fashion world always.
Well, it's about getting inspired, isn't it? It's not just about shopping.
Yeah, what I realised in relation to my multitasking ways over the decades is that it's actually okay to be doing a lot of different things, and actually it's really exciting. I'm glad that I didn't find myself having to focus on one thing. It always has been and continues to be a sort of like invigorating life force to be able to multitask and sort of take the bits that I like.
No, 100% in agreement.
I find it really exciting.
I think that's the secret, isn't it? You've cracked it.
Yeah. I do remember at one point feeling quite sort of frustrated and like, I'm getting left behind. I'm just like, what's going to happen to me? I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Does anyone?
Oh, no, I don't know if they do really.
They don't.
And I don't really care if I'm cringy or not or anything. Sometimes I think, oh God, that's a bit, ooh, you know. But then I think, oh, who cares? I think it's all right.
100%. No, I think I was just smiling to myself because I completely agree with that messaging, and I like to try lots of things as well. I don't believe in this jack of all trades nonsense. I think you can really go and be great at a lot of stuff. But I'm just thinking back to the start of the conversation, and it's like you've managed to put your fingers in all these pies and try all these things and have this amazing story to tell, and you're still writing the story, and it all started with a look. You just wanted to make yourself something, and it worked.
I don't know how you're going to end it, but
we will just.
It'll be lovely.
Any parting words?
No. Show Studios waiting for you.
It's been great to have you. So have a fabulous rest of your day.
Oh, thank you. It's been lovely being here.
Anytime.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching us, guys. Bye.